Hello, this honestly feels like a really awkward video to make. So, I really want to embody the comfy vibes. It's nice and chilly outside. The weather is changing. I am on my moon cycle, so I'm just very I don't know how to describe how I'm feeling right now. Honestly, there's a lot of negative emotions towards myself, but I'm working through them and realizing the way I'm judging myself and stuff like that. Um, and that has honestly been really helpful and, good. But I just feel tired. My body hurts. I'm yeah, and right now it's too, I've realized my introvert energy on my period becomes an all-time max sometimes. So people really take energy away from me no matter what the conversation is when I'm on my period, and it's I don't have a lot of energy. But I started thinking too, I'd been planning to make a video kind of talking about my journey because I've been really realizing all the growth I've made and the spot in my life I'm at compared to where I was. And I was I really want to talk about it and make a video about my journey because I do feel I've been through a lot, and my journey is really inspiring and can resonate to some people, and there's a part in sharing it. So I wanted to kind of share my journey, who I am, I guess, and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so let's start from the beginning. I feel like this video is so awkward to start. My name is Jasmina, and I was born in a town in Ontario. I ended up living in a small town in Ontario till I was about 5, when my parents broke up and me and my mom moved to where most of her family lived, in another town in Ontario, which is where I live today. So kind of my growing up, I really want to paint a picture of what my early years were like. So my mom was my best friend. I love my mom. She's always been my safe place. And even when I had that teen angst against her and, had those moments, which I had later on in life, I had that at around 17, 18, 19. I still now as an adult realize so much about the relationship with my mom, how special it is, how she is also a human and humans make mistakes. So yeah, she's not perfect, but nobody is. And there's a lot of compassion towards my mom, also knowing what she's been through and everything she's dealt with, and just the fact that she's still here and she's fighting every day, and she went from where she went to this independent woman who raised her daughter by herself, single mom, full single mom. And I was it's just, my mom is so inspiring, so inspiring. My dad is where I get a lot more of my trauma from. Was a lot of stuff with my dad. So my father, I firmly believe, and not in any type of trying to say negatively about people with NPD, I believe my dad suffers from narcissistic personality disorder, and he just doesn't have that self-awareness where he realizes any of those things. And I can understand why he is the way he is from how he's grown up and what he's been through. But he's not changing, and he has done so many things again and again and again. And I got to a point where I was done and I cut him off. But that's later in my life. At this point, when I was, up to 5, I lived with my mom and dad. Now, when I was 2, my dad did something, I don't know, I was 2, and me and my mom ended up going to a shelter. And I actually have a memory in the shelter from when I was 2 because the baby monitor broke, and I woke up and my mom wasn't there, and I started screaming. And I remember it vividly to this day, even though I was fucking 2. So really insane what the brain can do and how trauma affects a child's brain. But then, we go back. My dad had all these issues, but my dad had a lot of, like, drug issues and stuff like that. So that's something that I grew up around a lot with him. And, like, yeah, I grew up around a lot with that. Around that time, weed was illegal here in Canada. And he was very, very into that, along with other stuff. But yeah, he was a dealer, all that kind of stuff. So there was one memory I have as a kid where he got caught stealing, brought the cops back to our house, ran in the house, and then they came in the house and noticed the weed farm we had in the basement that my dad was making money off of. And we got, like, taken out of the house. The house was, like, raided and whatnot, and we weren't allowed to return for, like, a weekend, I think it was, until me and my mom were allowed to return to the house, because they were, like, doing a full inspection, everything like that. Like a full house raid, like, they stole my mom's $200 that was sitting there, kind of like house raid. Like, that was my childhood. My house was kind of known to the high school across the street as that's the guy you're gonna buy weed from kind of deal. Like, he just wasn't a good guy. So then at 5, my mom finally has had enough with my dad. Like, good. I don't know how that woman stood as long as she did with that man. She is a godsend. But she finally decided to leave. And there was the one night where my dad was, like, manipulating me into trying to convince my mom to let me stay with him for the weekend. And she said maybe, which you could tell it was a no. And my dad lost it and, like, got very physical with my mom. And he later blamed that on me for crying and said it was my fault he got physical with my mom because I started crying. That held a lot of, like, blaming myself for things and thinking that everything between my mom and my dad was my fault. But yeah, my dad ended up having, like, domestic charges, and he ended up reaching out to my mom when he wasn't allowed to. And he went to jail. And he was in jail for a few months. And I wasn't allowed to see him for 6 months. And at that point, me and my mom lived in an abused women and children shelter. And child me didn't know what was going on, and I was really fucking angry and sad, and, like, I didn't understand where my dad was. Like, I didn't understand who he was. I just loved him as my dad. And I was very angry with my mom at that point, and that's something that, like, later on in life I had to heal from because I felt really bad for being so angry with her. Like, she was a single mom who left an abusive relationship, and her kid is sitting there talking about how horrible she is for leaving her dad. And I know my dad played a part in it, and I know it was because of the shit he would say about my mom when I was, by myself with him later on. But I held a lot of blame for a really, really, really long time about that, and feeling like my mom's life would have been better without me. Like, I felt that for a very, very long time. But then, we're living here, we get out of the shelter, go into school, life is normal. In grade 7, or not grade 7, sorry, in grade 2, when I was about 7, 8, I started getting bullied really, really badly, and I got bullied by a teacher. At that point, I also ended up starting to self-harm, and I started thinking about suicide. So at that age, I started finding ways to self-harm myself. My dad was very misogynistic, and he cared a lot about appearances and weight. So that's when he started really fueling me having an eating disorder for the rest of my life. Because he would make comments about weight. He would talk about how all this, super skinny girls were, like, so pretty, and how fat people are this and that. And, like, he always said that shit. And it was really bad. Then, fast forward, I'm 10, and both of my parents get into relationships. Now, this was a huge moment for me because it was, like, 5 years of just having each of my parents to myself. And then they both got into a relationship when I was 10. My mom got into a relationship with a man in South Africa, and she went and visited him. Which, like, the strength my mom had for doing that, like, as a single mom and everything, like, I love her. But that was really hard for my 10-year-old brain to understand everything that was going on, and family shit and all that stuff. Like, it was so hard for 10-year-old me to understand. And then my dad also got into a relationship as well. Now, I have a lot of trauma from my dad's relationships because it was always, his were so toxic. There was one I can think of where I actually really liked them and they were a good person, but the rest, oh my god. But he had this one girlfriend, who, she didn't like me. She didn't like that my dad had a kid, I guess. She didn't like that my dad loved another girl. It was really messed up. But my dad stopped saying I love you to me. He stopped talking to me for like 6 months. Just like, didn't reach out, nothing. And that was like heartbreaking because I started realizing at 10 who my dad was. I started realizing, like, he's not a good person. Like, he was picking a woman over his child. And let this woman treat his child like shit. And then during that time, many more memories came out. I can't remember when I remembered the essay, but at some point I ended up realizing that I was sexually abused by my dad. During, like, as a childhood up, I think I said until 10 was when it stopped. Up in, like, all my childhood till 10, I experienced little incidences of sexual abuse with my father. One that I, like, there's a few I will talk about. One was my dad, like, showered with me and stuff like that when I was a kid, and sometimes he would, like, try to pee on me in the shower. And, like, when you think about our height difference, like, I'm right by his crotch, bro. So there was that. He also watched porn with me in the room. And that really started giving me this idea that women were just for sex, and that that's all my purpose was, and that I wasn't going to be innocent, and I was going to be this gross object, and that women were objects. And that also came because I was an early bloomer and got my period at 10, and my dad started making comments about me going through puberty, and, like, about my boobs and my butt and my figure and this. And then there also became a huge theme of having comments on my acne because I had horrible acne going through puberty. And I got comments from my dad and my dad's side, like, constantly, and it broke me. My dad also, during the time when I started realizing all the trauma, was he showed me so many gory and graphic movies, with extreme gore and sex scenes. One that I think encapsulates my dad perfectly for what he will show a 6-year-old is he showed me I Spit on Your Grave, which has an hour aggressive rape scene. And he showed that to me when I was 6. We watched it together. Yeah. Then kind of 10 to 11, 12, my dad was very in and out. He got really focused with relationships and kind of, like, stopped caring about me, and that's when I stopped seeing him consistently. But at 12, that's when a big theme in my life that I've noticed come up often is I started getting taken advantage of and having situations of sexual assault with older men. So at 12, I got groomed by a 14, 15-year-old. Yeah, I fell in love with him, and he had his girlfriend, and he was cheating with me, and I was 12. And that I carried so much guilt, 12-year-old me, about being a homewrecker. And it was like I was 12, I was a fucking child. There was all this shit that was being put on me at that. I was fucking 12, bitch. Like, I was 12, and I was the goody two-shoes kid that didn't get into anything. So that was a lot, and I was so obsessed with being innocent because of my sexual abuse, and he loved that, so he, like, really took, I guess, advantage of that, and, really wanted to break that innocence. I was 12. But yeah, so then 12 was also my first, suicide attempt, and as we can see, a pattern in my life is people that I care about getting into relationships. So that was always very, like, scary for me. So at 12, my cousin got into a relationship, and she was, like, my best friend. And I thought that meant that the same thing that happened with my mom and dad was gonna happen again with her. And I was gonna lose her, too. So I ended up having a huge freak out. I had an attempt, and I was put in the child psych ward for 2 weeks. After that, being in the hospital and being in psych wards and stuff like that became a reoccurring thing. It felt like every year or every year and a half, I would end up back in the hospital. And so many times I lied because I didn't want to get admitted. And then other times I was brutally honest and I needed help, and they didn't help me. That happened after I got the borderline personality disorder diagnosis. And I've learned that it's actually something very common where they just kind of stop admitting you. So all the times I could have been admitted, I had lied about it because I didn't want to be. But I am now 1 year free from the hospital. And that's pretty insane to think about. And, like, seeing how good I'm doing, it's like, it doesn't feel like I'm going to end up back there. And that is honestly really cool. Like, really cool. So after that, I kind of became, I guess, the mentally ill one of the family. I was the one, who, I don't want to say crazy, but I was ill, and I had all these mental illnesses and all these things and all that kind of stuff, and it was a lot. Then for a while there, things were kind of just whatever. I went into high school, and my first year of high school was all right. I ended up meeting some really nice people, and I had I honestly, I had a good first year of high school. The only issue is I was an overachiever. I always felt like I was stupid and I wasn't good enough. So I tried to prove myself through grades. And that's, like, became a theme in my life as well, of trying to prove myself and my worth through my accomplishments through school. During high school, I had suicide attempts every, like, few months, fucking hospital visits, like, stress. I was always stressed. I was always horrible. I was always in the counseling office at school because I wasn't in a, like, I was, like, I have had so many moments at school. I got kicked out of the Ottawa trip when I was in grade 8 because I had a mental breakdown and had just gotten out of the hospital. Like, that trip everybody gets to go in Ottawa, where I didn't get that because I was in crisis. So it really kind of started putting that theme that I was like the mentally ill one and I was like the crazy one. Then at 17, I got a job. And it was alright. It was good in a lot of ways and bad in other ways. But I learned through that job that I really couldn't handle working with everything else. I realized I had an attempt the one day after work, and part of it was because of the mindset I got into over work. Like, I just got into this horrible mindset about work, and I couldn't escape it. I couldn't get out of it. And I attempted. And after that, I started, thinking, like, I don't know how I'm gonna survive in the future, like, in university and whatever my plans are, if I can't work. And I was so scared, like, I thought I wasn't good enough again. And that, I can't remember if that was the first attempt where an ambulance got called, but then I started also having that happen, where there would be an ambulance and police officers in my house at 2 o'clock in the morning, because Jazzy had again tried to kill herself, and like that was just like a reoccurring thing. So I decided that when I turned 18, I was going to apply for Ontario Disability Support Program, and I did. And I ended up realizing too, because COVID hit, how much relief I had just being able to be at home, like how much better I felt, how much easier it was to like exist. So yeah, COVID was a big turning point. Then, fuck, I'm sorry this is so long. Then, I get an ESP, whatnot, things, or whatever, I'm in a relationship, and it was a long-distance relationship. And there was so much toxic things in that, and they saw me as a red flag because I had mental illness, and because I had an eating disorder. So his parents were telling him not to date me because I had an eating disorder and because I had mental illnesses. And mind you, this guy that I told you about that groomed me when I was 12, that was him. So I was 17 and he was 20 when we first met. But we end up breaking up when I'm about like almost 19. And I go into a full-blown psychosis episode. Things were like I was a shell of a person. I burned so many bridges. I have so many friends I had in high school that just unfollowed me, and I don't know why. And I just am left to assume that it was because of something I said in psychosis. And it's so hard not being angry at myself because I said some horrible shit. So in this time, I also started going into a cycle of trying to, I guess, I don't want to say use men, because I did care about the people I was meeting, but trying to numb it out with just getting fascinated and obsessed with some guy. And ended up getting a really nice guy, like, into my bullshit, and I, like, did a lot of things to him that I never should have, and luckily we still talk and shit, but like, I was a horrible version of myself, and I did a lot of things I wish I never did. And in that time, because of that and other things going on, 3 of my best friends, who I had said so many times to myself, these are my people, because all of high school, I felt really cut off from friends, and then at 19, I had these 3 friends, and it felt like I was so, like, I felt like I finally had friends. And the one girl I met at school, and her name starts with a K. And she was the first friend that I really connected with, and I really cared about. And the first time I really felt open with a friend where I didn't have to mask or hide anything. And because of my psychosis and because of everything, it created this like mixing pot of chaos. And they ended up posting a whole bunch of videos about me and attacking me online and cyberbullying me. And that was when I was in psychosis already, so I went even more into psychosis, and they started like fake claiming my illness and started fake claiming my addiction issues, because with psychosis, my self-harm was horrible, my suicide stuff was horrible. I started abusing pills, and then I wanted to leave my life. I didn't care, and my thought was that drugs was going out with a bang. Thought that drugs would be going out with a bang versus committing suicide, which I tried so many times. It didn't work. So that's when I met my second boyfriend, who is now my ex. I was 19 and he was 25, 26. And he got me addicted to cocaine. And I had a full-blown cocaine addiction. And I was in university, online university, because of COVID. And it started to like ruin that, and I was using it to do my schoolwork. Like, I would sit there and snort cocaine to do schoolwork. And that was the norm for me. And then I ended up missing a deadline, and school ended up getting all fucked up, and I wasn't allowed to I was allowed to return, but I wasn't allowed to go in the field I wanted to go in. So in that, I'm 19, I'm in drugs, and my partner at that point was really abusive as well. He didn't understand consent and stuff like that, so there was a lot of sexual abuse. Then there was a lot of online drama, all that kind of stuff, and I just didn't care. I didn't care about life, and I don't say this term in like an offensive way, but I was a full-blown junkie. Like, I didn't care the things I said to my mom, because I wanted drugs. I was in NA, and I was watching all the other friends I had made slowly leave me because they couldn't handle it. They couldn't handle the addiction and my abusive boyfriend. I have one friend, and I still have their note on the wall, and to this day, I can't talk to them because they had to block me, and I can't know how they are. And it was because they could see how abusive my boyfriend was, but I didn't care because I was in psychosis. I ignored all the red flags. And then we ended up breaking up, and it ended up being this whole cycle of abuse with this boyfriend, and the back and forth, and we broke up. and he was bipolar, and he was in a manic episode, and it is a mess. And my cousin, the one who, when I was 12, I ended up committing, or attempting, because she got in a relationship, well, she helped me break up with him, and then a little bit later I got back with him, and then I essentially lost her. And at this point, too, like, complete side note, back to my dad shit, I had cut my dad off, so I lost my complete dad side of the family. And most of them I don't care. Most of them it doesn't hurt. But my cousins hurt. My cousins hurt a lot. Because they don't talk to me. And now it feels like it's felt like I've lost my other cousin too in the relationship we had. Because of my abusive ex and because of my psychosis and everything. So that was really the rock bottom of my life. So this is kind of gonna be like the last chapter, sum it all up kind of thing. For the last 5 months, things have been really fucking good. Like, I broke up with the toxic boyfriend, and it hurt, and it was hard, and it wasn't, like, fun at all. But it's been so much growth the last 5 months. Like, I'm following my dreams. I didn't get back into the habit of going on Tinder and meeting some random person and getting attached to them. I've also been almost a year sober of cocaine. And that, like, I haven't had that bout of like, I don't have cravings really anymore. Like, I don't know how to do, like, mushrooms have helped me a lot. And helped with that addiction stuff, and helped me with my cocaine addiction. And throughout kind of all the stuff that I was, like, going through and stuff like that, things have been, like, getting so much easier. Like, I used to use TikTok in such a destructive way, and then I took a huge, like, 3-month break. And now I use it in a way that aligns with my dreams and my goals of having my own business. I feel connected to my goals. I feel connected to my dreams. I feel connected to traveling. When I was 20, we did a camp birthday, and we did bush camping out by the lake up in Sudbury. And it was the greatest time ever. And that's when I really realized, like, what I want with my life. And, like, what my dreams are. And when I was in addiction, like, I didn't care. I remember talking with my counselor, and every day she was like, not every day, but every session, you know, we kind of came up, and I was like, I just want to be a junkie. Like, I don't care. I don't care about my dreams. I don't want to travel. I don't want to go to anywhere. Like, at 12, after my suicide attempt, I made a bucket list. And that was so important to me, and now again is so important to me, and I'm like slowly crossing away the bucket list. But when I was in addiction, I didn't give a shit. You could tell me about my biggest dreams, and I'd be like, I picked drugs. I wasted so much money. And, okay. Like, I wasted so much money. And all these things in my life that have caused me so much harm, I feel like I'm working through, and I feel more aligned with my goals and my dreams. Like, I remember in high school, you know how you get your photo ID card? I thought it was so cool, you know, that I could look back on them when I was older. Because in high school, I really was like this innocent, overachiever that didn't get into trouble, that didn't do anything, that just cared about school. And I was trying to look for them to show them to my friend. And, they're destroyed with, like, shit all over them because I used them during addiction for cocaine. So now when I look back at them, I don't see my high school. I see my addiction journey. I had a really bad addiction problem. And I still struggle a lot with, like, the addiction mindset and stuff, but, like, I do not want to do cocaine. I do not want to, like, live that life. And I was so set to it. Like, I woke up every morning and I was like, I want to be a junkie. Like, I don't care. I was pushing my mom away. I was pushing everybody away. I lost so many people. And, like, I've now been a year free of the hospital, which is insane. And that's also, like, from any major suicidal thought, which I was so scared about breaking up with my abusive ex because my first breakup, I went through fucking psychosis. So I was, like, so scared. And I ended up doing really, really good. And I went on the right path and I didn't fucking impulsively use Tinder and I worked on my emotions and I healed. And I'm really proud of myself for doing that because it was really hard. And, yeah. But it's also been a year since I've really had any vivid suicidal thoughts. And with my OCD, like, when I mean vivid, I mean vivid. Like, I would vividly see people finding me dead. I would vividly see the process. All of it. And I haven't seen that in like a year. I haven't had my suicidal thoughts become that intense. And it took time. Like, I've been spiritual for longer than that. And it took time. Like, you don't unlearn everything fast. Like, it takes a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of falling down and a lot of getting back up. And eventually you get somewhere. And now I'm, like, doing my yoga teacher training. I want to teach yoga. I'm getting into content creation. I'm getting into getting a job. I'm not going back to university because it doesn't align with my goals. And at one point in my life, I couldn't ever imagine not going because my whole worth was attached to school. Like, it takes time to grow. It takes a lot of time. And it takes a lot of effort, and it's not always love and light, and it's not always fun, and it's hard. It's hard fucking work, and it's work that's important. And a lot of people might not see it as important, but it's important. I can name, like, a changing moment in my life. So when I used to cry so much, I would get suicidal. And I think it was sometime last year. I was crying, and I was saying all that negative stuff about myself that I was so used to saying. And it was, like, the first time since maybe high school where I heard that positive voice trying to encourage me to keep going. And I felt it so strongly in that moment. And after that, I was proud of myself. And then dealing with my emotions has been a lot easier since then. It's still been a journey of falling down and getting back up, like, don't get me wrong. But that was a really big changing moment when I started to, like, fight back those negative thoughts and not just give in. And, like, so many of my negative thoughts was that I wasn't good enough and that I was, you know, I thought with my borderline personality disorder, with the depression, the anxiety, all the fucking PTSD, the fucking all of it, I thought that I was meant to die. I thought that I was supposed to die from suicide and be an example of, be a part of the statistic of those who had taken their life from suicide. Be one of the numbers so that it increases and maybe one day they change something. I thought that's what my life was supposed to be. And for so many years I kept going back to that, and like, so many people talk about having suicide attempts and then the moment after it's like, I'm so glad I survived, like, yay. I had so many moments where I looked back on those suicide attempts and I was mad that I didn't die. I wasn't grateful I survived. I wasn't grateful I got through it. I was fucking pissed it didn't work. And I have not had one of those thoughts in so fucking long. And I was going through an abusive relationship breakup and I didn't go through that. And that there, I think, just shows the growth. And that's why I really want to share spirituality and I want to share healing and I want to share that. Because I get what it feels like to just be your mental illness. And now, like, I still know I have BPD, of course. But it doesn't feel like that's all I am. It doesn't affect me nearly as much. Like, I feel so much more empowered and grounded. And at one point, I thought my disorders defined me and that I was just going to be a mentally ill person the rest of my life. And that I cannot describe how fully I believed I was meant to die from suicide. I didn't know when it was going to happen, but I felt like that's what my path was meant to be. And now, I haven't thought about suicide in a freaking while. I haven't self-harmed in months. I haven't even thought about it. Like, it wasn't, I self-harmed and I struggled and then stopped. Like, no, I just stopped and I haven't felt the need. And I've had the need every once in a while and then I like, oh no, what the fuck? And I'm able to calm down and I was never like that. I destroyed my arms and my legs during my psychosis. Scars that will forever be on my body because of self-harm. Because of how angry I was at myself. Because I didn't know how to react, and I didn't know how to healthily cope with my emotions. And now I have people in lives fucking telling me, like, how can I be more like you? Because of how positively I talk about things and how much I've learned from my trauma. And having people say, how can I be like you? It's insane. Because I used to sit and suffer so much. And I used to be the friend that, like, everybody knew. Like, my friends, we did a little, like, when do you, in high school, where do you think you're gonna be the end of 2020, back in the end of 2019 or whatever. And I got voted the one most likely to commit suicide. Like, that was my aura, that was me, I was that. And I'm not that anymore, I've grown. So I'm gonna kind of cap it off there. Things are a lot better. Like, I have days where I fucking love my life. And where I'm like, life is amazing. And on the other end, though, I don't have days where I'm like, this is awful, I want to die. Like, I don't have that anymore. And I used to only feel the negative, and now feels like I only feel the positive sometimes. I still feel the negative, but, like, not as intensely as I used to. So, I have made so much growth, so much fucking growth, like, so many things that were points of trauma in my life, I have grown from, and I'm really, really proud of myself, because I've been through a lot, and I feel like I'm feeling like I'm more than my mental illness. I don't feel like I'm just borderline personality disorder. And I used to be one of those people that's all I talked about, because it felt like that's all I was. So yeah, this is kind of, I don't know how to end this off, but thank you for being here and listening to this. And honestly, if you are struggling with, like, anything related, like, the comment section is a safe place, and I will try to respond. I will try to respond to everybody I can. Like, I really feel like my purpose is to help people, and I have been through a lot, and I really want to help other people who are going through similar things. And spirituality has helped me, but at the end of the day, I just want to help people feel happy. I just want to help people feel okay. So, the comments, I'm going to say this again, is a safe place for everybody. You can share whatever you want to down there. And, yeah. Thank you for being brave and vulnerable. Thank you for being you. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this long-ass video of learning about me and my growth. I wanted to make it short, but as you can see, I kind of have a lot of shit to talk about that I've been through. But no, I really am, like, I have a good group of friends. I have a good, like, I never thought I would be here. I never thought I would be here. I never thought suicide would feel so afar from who I am, when before I would have suicidal thoughts every single day. So yeah, if I could fucking heal, you can heal. And if you want to learn spirituality or anything like that, subscribe, because I talk about that stuff, and that's a big part of my healing. Shrooms have helped me heal a lot, microdosing, stuff like that. But yeah, thank you so much for coming here and being you. Yeah, thank you for being strong. You've come this far. I'm proud of you. You can do it. Keep fucking going, bro. Okay, I'm gonna let you guys go. Love you. Bye.